Good morning. The Sermon Sunday was not recorded, so I'm going to re-record it with the readings and some visual effects and some quotes. So this hopefully will be entertaining for you. I'm talking about Isabel Wilkerson's fantastic book, Caste. And the first reading is from her book it's titled Divine Will. And it's about the story of Hinduism and the caste system. Before the age of human awareness, according to the ancient Hindu text of India, Manu, the all-knowing, was seated in contemplation when the great men approached him and asked him, "Please, Lord, tell us precisely and in the proper order the laws of all the social classes, as well as of those born in between." Manu proceeded to tell of a time when the universe as we know it was in a deep sleep, and the one who is beyond the range of senses brought forth the waters and took birth himself as Brahma, the grandfather of all the worlds. And then to fill the land, he created the Brahmin, the highest caste, from his mouth, Kshatriya from his arms, the Vaishya from his thighs, and from his feet, the Shudra, the lowest of the four Varnas, or divisions of man, millennia ago and into the fullness of time. The fragment from which each caste was formed foretold the position that each would fill and their placement in order in the caste system, from the lowest to the highest, bottom to top. The Shudra, the feet, the servant, the bearer of burdens, the Vaishya, the thighs, the engine, the merchant, the trader, the Kshatriya, the arms, the warrior, the protector, the ruler, and above them, the Brahmin, the head. He was the head, the mouth, the philosopher, the sage, the priest, the one nearest to the gods. The Brahmin is by law the lord of this whole creation, according to the laws of Manu. It is by the kindness of Brahmin that other people eat. Unmentioned among the original four Varnas were those deemed so low that they were beneath even the feet of the Shudra. They were living out the afflicted karma of the past. They were not to be touched, and some not even to be seen. Their very shadow was a pollutant. They were outside of the caste system and thus outcasts. These were the untouchables, who would later come to be known as the Dalits, the subordinate castes of India. Reading 2, Divine Will, the book of Genesis in the Holy Bible. Noah became a man of the soil. His sons were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, who would become the progenitors of all humanity. One season, Noah planted a vineyard, and he later drank of the wine of the fruit of the vineyard. The wine overtook him, and he lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, who would become the father of a son, Canaan, happened into the tent and saw his father's nakedness and told his brothers outside. Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. They walked backward into the tent and covered their father's nakedness. Their faces were turned in the other direction so they would not see their father unclothed. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what Ham had done, he cursed Ham's son, Canaan, and the generations to follow, saying, "Curse be to Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." The story of Ham's discovery of Noah's nakedness would pass down through the millennia. The sons of Shem came to be known as Asian humans, Ham, African humans, and Japheth, Caucasian humans. spread across the continents. Shem to the east, Ham to the south, Japheth to the west, it was said. Those who decreed themselves the descendants of Japheth would hold fast to that story and translate it to their advantage. As the riches from the slave trade from Africa to the New World poured forth to the Spaniards, to the Portuguese, to the Dutch, and lastly to the English, the biblical passage would be summoned to condemn the children of Ham and to justify the kidnap and enslavement of millions of human beings and the violence against them. From the time of the Middle Ages, some interpreters of the Old Testament described Ham as being black-skinned and translated Noah's curse against him as a curse against the descendants of Ham, against all humans with dark skin, the people who Europeans told themselves had been condemned to enslavement by God's emissary, Noah himself. Challenging readings. Last week in my sermon about race, I talked about the reality in which we live, that we're all victims of psychosocial programming that is in many ways destructive, that our current structures are based on immoral foundations, that the foundation is cracked and faulty, which means it will need major reconstructive repairs. That includes re-education and reprogramming. That's what's needed about the history that we learned, the structure and nature of the made-up story about race that we have learned, because we have all been programmed to see them versus us, or that we are better than they are, and to see Black and brown bodies as the ultimate racial other. I said that this is the great work we must all do so that humanity can manifest its greatness and experience true freedom from all mental and physical tyrannies and traumas in the mind that manifest in the material world. So today I want to go back to the origins of our discontent using Isabel Wilkerson's scholarship in this fantastic book, as I've said, Caste. So you heard me read from the old Hindu story of how the caste system began. It was justified through an epic story of the creation of humanity, and it was codified as a holy story and has lived for over 3,000 years. Can you believe that? As the social order in India. Stories, dear ones, are powerful, and humans can justify almost anything. We must always be mindful about the stories we tell ourselves about others, as they can have generational ramifications, as you already know. What's not said in this mythical account that Wilkerson noted was this lowest caste. They weren't even included in the story, the outcasts. They were beneath the feet, the Dalits, the untouchables, who handled the lowest level jobs in society, like picking up dead carcasses, feces, or garbage. They were the unclean and impure and the darkest hued people in the culture. The caste system was outlawed in India in 1950, but the tradition continues even as it is continually protested. In America, we had a different but similar religious narrative, the curse of Ham, or Canaan, that got us in this precarious, racialized caste state that we live in. For a long time, hundreds of years, our white forebears, including the clergy, merchants, farmers, everybody, it was the power structure. This story in the Holy Bible, in the Old Testament, in Genesis, and there's passages in Leviticus as well, to rationalize othering of human beings, to rationalize slavery and brutality of Black bodies. And it's also in the New Testament. Ephesians 6:5, slaves, obey your earthly masters. Ironically, Paul's letter to the Ephesian Christians was teaching them that life is hard, persevere, the end is near, live with virtue. In other words, if you're a slave, hey, you won't be a slave for too much longer, so be a good slave. This scripture was also used to justify the subjugation of Black and brown bodies, this New Testament scripture. So unfortunately, religion is full of hypocrisy as the metaphorical head of God, the emissary for God. It seems that religion, especially the priestly caste, the Brahmin, are often nearly the cause of all the problems we face in society. Someone cynically said to me, show me a problem that the church is trying to solve that it didn't first start. It's cynical, but they have a point. Because these spokespersons for God, or the gods, have too often been full of bias and pettiness, which is why I prefer spirituality to religion. And that's why it's important for us as part of this faith tradition to walk our talk. What we teach and co-create as Unitarian Universalists is so important. Our narratives and stories that we promulgate can and do become a part of a fabric and in how we function morally as human beings. But what is caste? I have not defined it. So let us use Isabel Wilkerson's wise words. She said this: caste is the granting or withholding of respect, status, honor, attention, privileges, resources, benefit of the doubt, and human kindness to someone on the basis of their perceived rank or standing in the hierarchy. Caste is insidious and therefore powerful because it is not hatred. It is not necessarily personal. It's the worn grooves of comforting routines and unthinking expectations, patterns of a social order that have been in place for so long that it looks like the natural order of things, end quote. Then she continues, caste, on the other hand, predates the notion of race and has survived the era of formal state-sponsored racism that had long been openly practiced in the mainstream. The modern-day version of easily deniable racism may be able to cloak the invisible structure that created and maintains hierarchy and inequality. But caste does not allow us to ignore structure. Caste is structure. Caste is ranking. Caste is the boundaries that reinforce the fixed assignments based upon what people look like. Caste is a living, breathing entity. It is like a corporation that seeks to sustain itself at all costs. To achieve a truly egalitarian world requires looking deeper than what we think we see. We cannot win against a hologram, end quote. As a Black man who grew up in Southeast Washington, D.C., I had a rank, I had a class, I had a caste. And I have managed to become an upper middle class person through my education, through a lot of support, love, and of course, some luck. I have been fortunate, but I can never truly escape my caste because of the color of my skin. Wilkerson says that caste has 8 pillars or factors that hold it together. Now you have to read her book to get the details. Each one of these deserve their own message. 8 pillars. Divine will. We've been talking about that. That's religious justification. Hereditary privileges, and that is unearned privilege, which people really don't like to give up. Mating rules and taboos. That is, you marry your own kind and at the same level as your station. Purity versus pollution. That means you have been programmed to see that white is clean and Black is dirty or unclean. Occupational hierarchy. That is, who is seen as unworthy based on the type of work that is done. which leads to, of course, dehumanization, exploiting those who are not seen as fully human due to their status. And then terror enforcement, the cruel means to keep it all in place, which leads to the last one, perceived superiority and inferiority as a result of the first 7 pillars. So caste is a bit different from racism. Listen to Wilkerson's nuance. Quote, "What's the difference between racism and casteism? Because caste and race are interwoven in America, it can be hard to separate the two. Any action or institution that mocks, harms, assumes, or attaches inferiority or stereotype on the basis of the social construct of race can be considered racism. Any action or structure that seeks to limit, hold back, or put someone in a defined ranking seeks to keep someone in their place by elevating or denigrating that person on the basis of their perceived category can be seen as casteism. Casteism is the investment in keeping the hierarchy as it is in order to maintain your own ranking, advantage, privilege, or to elevate yourself above others, or to keep others beneath you." And she continues, "For those in the marginalized castes, casteism can mean seeking to keep those on your disfavored rung from gaining on you, to curry the favor and remain in the good graces of the dominant castes, all of which serve to keep the structure intact. In the United States, racism and casteism frequently occur at the same time, or overlapped, or figure into the same scenario. Casteism is about positioning and restricting those positions vis-a-vis others. What race and its precursor, racism, do extraordinarily well is to confuse and distract from the underlying structural and more powerful Sith Lord of caste. Like the cast on a broken arm, like the cast in a play, a caste system holds everything, holds everyone in a fixed place," end quote. So caste is hierarchy, and racism is structure, hierarchy and structure, like kissing cousins. But what is the real story, and how did we get here? What is this evil system that we have all inherited? I do have a theory, and I preached about it not that long ago. The real story is about agriculture, the agrarian age in our human evolution, and the emerging from, small tribes and into nation states, and naturally dividing the divisions of labor to get the work done. Then there's alpha leaders, some very toxic, using their intellect and cunning. More time passes, and the eventual emergence of the religious hierarchy, and more time, and eventually no one wants to do the menial labor. Well, somebody's got to do it. So the weak are preyed upon and eventually forced to do the jobs no one wants. And over time, human intelligence and cunning and leadership by sociopaths who tend to gravitate toward leadership, which lead to more wars and battles, lots of new weapons, guns, germs, more empire building. And we've gotten stuck with a story built by tyrants that prey upon the weakest among us. That's my theory. And it is this theory that gives me pause about where we are today as a society. I was picked on a lot as a kid. And because of that, I deeply dislike tyrannical behavior. In my mind, this is how the world was made, using made-up stories of faith-based justifications, and preying on the least of these. Wolves preying on sheep. When I look at this war with Russia and Ukraine, I see yet another example of the use of force instead of the true power, which is love, which is collaboration? When will we not allow despots and tyrants to lead? The people have to demand better and not fear them. So what is caste and racism for me? It represents the taking advantage of natural systems of collaboration to control people, places, and things for one's own benefit. Caste and racism exist because of people's out of control narcissism so that the few can control the many. It is not the pyramid of duties that is corrupt. It is not the division of labor. Rather, it's what we do to the people. What we do to the people. So we must keep debugging this system. We got to keep going inside the program. For example, when someone tells you that, this school or neighborhood or whatever is better for you, it might be. But what they're really saying to you is that there are no Black people there. And the deeper message is that, hey, we want you to be safe. And we deserve better than them. We are better than them. One of those pillars, or many of those pillars, in play. And when you buy into this, you're edifying one of those toxic pillars. And it's just not true. Black is not untouchable. It's very touchable. Black is soft and deep. It's real and grounded and soulful and funny and authentic, my friend. Black is beautiful. Hallelujah. So what can we do, Reverend John? We're so programmed. I agree. It feels inexorable, this problem. The hierarchy and the system are insidious indeed, but we must be committed to truth. The truth shall set you free. Divisions of labor, as I said, that's not the evil part. How we treat people at each level of the system, that's the issue. All work has worth, value, and dignity. All workers deserve equity and fairness, access to education and healthcare, and safe communities to live in. And those who are at the top, at the head, must use their power to create a new story that embraces instead of erases, and use our power to contain those forces, the head of this beast that wishes to control human free will. That is our part, as you use. That is part of the job that we must do, to be the change. What else can we do? Be committed to that re-education process, like I said last week. That's how you grow your soul. It's spiritual work. But especially after today, my hope is that you see Black and brown people more in your life. That you see people who've been subjugated to these lower castes in a different and more compassionate light. That your empathy will come through. That you can figure out what you can do in your place, with your ranking. Make life better for them. That you notice them, understand and see their suffering. When you go out and do your relational meetings in the community, many of you are active in the community. You're working with people from all hues, all places in society. Try breaking that spell, that caste spell, by just trying to see the image of God, the imago Dei in them. When you're in the grocery store, try to see the full humanity in the workers. When the yard guy comes over to do your lawn, I have a guy that comes to see me. Have a conversation. And when it's time to pay, give him more than he asks. When you see a homeless person on the street, see them, look them in the eye. And if you're compelled to give, give. And of course, as I've said, we must continue to speak out against the system and call attention to this immoral social construct. Noticing is half the battle. When we notice, we shift our thinking. And when enough of us shift mental consciousness, since humans are a connected organism, we change the material world a bit at a time. So be that change, because the world we have is the world that we have co-created collectively. We created this world through religious myths based on notions of superiority, and we can change this world with new inclusive stories based on the enduring principle of love. When we change the narrative, we change the reality. It's just that simple, and it's just that hard. Sister Isabel Wilkerson gets the final words today as I close. She said this: "We are not personally responsible for what people who look like us did centuries ago, but we are responsible for what good or ill we do to people alive with us today. We are, each of us, responsible for every decision we make that hurts or harms another human being. We are responsible for recognizing that what happened in previous generations at the hands of or to people who look like us set the stage for the world we now live in, and that what has gone before us grants us advantages or burdens through no effort or fault of our own, gains or deficits that others who do not look like us often do not share. We are responsible for our own ignorance, or with time and open-hearted enlightenment, our own wisdom. We are responsible for ourselves and our own deeds or misdeeds in our time and in our own space, and we will be judged accordingly by succeeding generations." Amen.